Communities across Canada are remembering missing and murdered women by taking part in memorial walks. The Onion Lake First Nation was no exception this weekend as dozens of people gathered to commemorate their loved ones. Anna Knotveit has details.
They walk down the highway quietly, remembering women that are no longer in the community. Pauline Mesquego has her daughter in mind. She went missing back in 2004.
So she had been missing for 4 years before her remains were found. And the court case is still ongoing. We haven't had resolution yet.
Members from Onion Lake have participated in the walk for the past 5 years.
She was one of 400. And unfortunately, the statistics are as high as over 600 now. 600 missing and murdered Aboriginal women and children.
To create an awareness that we need to find some solutions, some type of closure, and also it's a big form of healing for all the families involved.
About 9 families from Onion Lake have been affected by missing or murdered women, and some say it's difficult every day.
And saying prayers for all the other families that are going through this today and every day. It's never ending. Even if the case was solved, the memories still linger. The hurt is still there. The pain is there. It goes through my mind as the what ifs, the could haves. Where would my niece be today as she was going to school at Lakeland at the time that she was murdered? Her children do miss her, and so I think about the children as I'm walking.
And Lewis wants the walk to serve as a reminder to families everywhere.
I'd like to encourage the parents to please make your children aware of the dangers that are out there. Let them know that anything can happen. Nobody is ever safe.
Anna Knotveit, Newcap News.
Well, social media has now changed the way information is shared. When news breaks, details can be sent out in seconds on both Facebook and Twitter, but sometimes those details can get a little skewed. Now, in this installment of our RCMP Monthly, Nair Manisa sits down with Staff Sergeant Dave Callis to get his thoughts on the issue, especially in the past week as a high-risk offender is on the loose.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. So let's just kind of get started on things. Over the last week or so, some border city residents, people in our area, have a little bit been on edge just with this whole incident with this high-risk offender. So, of course, a press release was sent out, and we kind of found that some people were taking certain measures with the school boards, locking doors and all that stuff. So I just kind of wanted to get your take on how exactly things kind of went over the past week.
Okay, well, I can certainly speak in general terms. When we put out a press release to the media, really it's our way of communicating with the public because we know that through TV, radio, newspaper, the information that maybe is a concern to the police is going to get out to the general public through that format. What our intention is we will put out information so that the public can be aware of something that's happening in the community, as was the case this week. And it's just so that they can then take the necessary steps to protect themselves and their families and really minimize the risk that may be out there. And what we always encourage is that the response be proportionate to the information that's released. So as long as people are aware, our intention is not to panic anyone. It is really to inform and educate the population with those media releases.
And of course, we take those press releases that you guys send to us and we put them on our Facebook page and on our Twitter account. Are you finding that sometimes though, like when we do sort of stuff, we see a lot of interaction with our viewers on certain stories. Do you find that sometimes the reaction you're getting might be just a little bit over the top? I don't know how you would kind of explain that.
I think that social media certainly is, it is something that we now have to deal with. What we have seen in the past is that sometimes the message that we put out, then when it hits social media, people tend to add information that's sometimes not always accurate to the original press release, and things are made maybe into something that it's not. So when people are getting their news, I think they have to be aware that if they're getting it from social media, that it may not be as credible as from a legitimate news source like your TV station or the newspaper or the radio. So social media certainly does play a part in that. In some ways it's very good because the news does travel much quicker than if it's on radio or TV potentially. But again, you have to be aware of what you're reading, and so if the original press release is on there, that's what people should really concentrate on, I think, and pay attention to that.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. Once again, this is Staff Sergeant Dave Callis with the Lloydminster RCMP. Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, it's time again to look back in retrospect this week from the archives. Now, in this chapter, Brian Hardy brings us stories about a generous donation by the Kingsman Foundation, as well we take a look back at the elf antler industry.
It's October 1992, and we report on the burgeoning business of elk antlers.
These are elk antlers after they've been harvested from their owners, large Canadian elk. They're the focus of a new industry for the Midwest, the elk antler industry. This vat is filled with ginseng and other Chinese herbs, and basically the horn is dipped into this concoction. A reason for that is to kill off all the bacteria that's connected to the horn. It's also used as a preservative to help preserve the horn, and it gives it a real sweet smell that's popular in the Orient.
You can go any herb shop in Orient, Korea, Japan, China. You will see two things on the facade. You know, they see ginseng and alcohol, always.
The horn is taken to improve the potency of an individual and to help build strength.
Actually, the Canadian alcohol is the best in the world. It's like a brand new product. Nobody recognizes yet.
And a good pair of antlers will bring in around $2,000. And a record is kept so that no outside or wild antlers will end up in the process. In other words, poaching for horns is not permitted. Another thing I'll get.
This week in 2009, the Lloydminster Hospital receives an impressive new ultrasound machine.
The new machine is an upgrade from past ultrasound devices at the hospital. A demo unit was shown to the hospital in July, and the machine arrived near the end of August. The doctors are glad to have the new technology at their disposal. Perhaps the biggest feature of the new machine is its portability, allowing doctors to perform ultrasounds wherever they need to in the hospital. The machine cost $66,000, and every penny of it was donated by the Kinsman Foundation. Grayson Knutson, Newcap News.
Join us next time for Upgrade or Groundbreaking. I'm Brian Hardy for Retrospect, this week from the archives.